Is it normal to operate at maximum stress every day? Am I supposed to feel completely and totally mentally and physically exhausted every day? Is life supposed to feel this draining? If you have ever asked yourself these questions, this episode is for you. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reigeter, and today I'm joined by Dr. Carolyn Rubenstein, a licensed psychologist specializing in anxiety, burnout, perfectionism, and trauma, and the author of Perseverance, How Young People Turn Fear into Hope and How They Can Teach Us to Do the Same. Join us as we break down the different ways burnout can present itself in our lives, the warning signs that we can recognize, how we can manage burnout, and ways to prevent it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited for our conversation and to learn from you. But before we begin, I really want to check in with you. How are you really?
I am really good. It's like the afternoon here, and it's not too late in the afternoon. So my energy is still good. But like in a couple hours, I'll kind of like feel that energy drop. But you're getting me like the right after lunch kind of time is like my peak. So I'm doing really good.
Oh, love that. And same, I'm here in Florida and just had lunch, played tennis this morning. So I'm at that point where I'm feeling good. Life has not gotten too busy yet.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. So we're both in Florida.
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm really excited to talk to you about burnout today as a grad student, as an entrepreneur, just trying to balance these different roles as a caretaker. It's so easy for me to feel burnt out or overwhelmed. So I'm really excited to learn more about what burnout is and how we can kind of prevent it as well as manage it as we go along. So to start, can you tell us a little bit more about what burnout actually is?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a term that is used a lot and thrown out a lot because it's not a clinical term. It's not like a diagnostic term that we use. So it does have a lot of different meanings. But I think there's definitely a meaning that has been kind of eventually been agreed upon among clinicians and what we focus on. At the kind of overarching, it's really unmanaged chronic stress. So it is, you're chronically stressed, you're kind of disconnected, and start to feel the effects. And so you start to feel the effects usually in three different areas or three parts. You don't have to have all these parts to be kind of considered to have burnout, but these are, if you have someone who's full-blown burnout, like they're at the end, they'll have all of this. So it's emotional exhaustion, which is like fatigue, insomnia, anxiety, depression, irritability, that drained feeling is the first part. The second part is like a cynicism and detachment. So you feel pretty isolated, detached from others, pessimistic. So you start to see that kind of arise as well. And then a decreased sense of accomplishment, which is ironically what people tend to associate burnout with, is they start to feel like there is no end in sight, that this is never going to end, that nothing they're doing is making a difference or making an impact. So what's the point? It's almost like you're on a hamster wheel. And so it's these three parts, when you have all of them combined, are a pretty nasty combination.
Yeah, feeling burnt out in that mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion, feeling hopeless, feeling just like done can be so overwhelming. And I think a lot of times it's really easy to miss those warning signs, right? That we're heading there, because it can be really difficult to tell the difference between I'm just exhausted and I'm heading toward burnout. So what are some of those warning signs or differences?
I think so. Definitely differ by person, person to person. But if you start to notice yourself feeling more drained, like when you're approaching activities or after activities most of the time, that's a big red flag. And so when I say drained, it's really like you're approaching activities with the mindset of like, I have to do this, or I should do this, or I need to do this. But it's like you kind of, these words are kind of, there's a responsibility, but I don't really want to do this beforehand. And then afterwards or even during, you feel depleted. you feel exhausted emotionally, physically, just like, okay, that's zapped more of my energy out. And you're not feeling content, you're not feeling calm, you're just feeling like every little thing that you're doing is taking more and more out of you. Eventually, there's not much left. But you start to feel when there's very little, you can feel that draining coming out of you.
Yeah. Oh, I totally relate to that feeling. Getting
Yeah.
to the point of final exams and feeling stressed, first of all semester with the amount of assignments, feeling stressed. I mean,
It's like the
I'm
perfect formula for burnout.
right. I'm
Yeah.
recording 7 podcast episodes this week and I'm 7 episodes behind in editing. So knowing that I'm at that like level of so much to do for work, so much to do at home to just like exist and clean up, so much to do
Yeah.
with school. It's so easy to get to that point where it's like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then
Yeah.
10 minutes into it, I just have no brain power left, no capacity. And
Yeah.
that's so stressful because it's like, how did I get to this point? What does this mean? What's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be good at all of this, right? Like, I
I
have good
know.
grades. How am I not like feeling more confident? How am I not smarter? How am I not this? It becomes all this self-doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it happens so quickly, and you're often just accepted as like, this is normal for me, right? Like, and it's not, it shouldn't be so draining. And I think that's the thing, is that we're too accepting of this horrible state of being. And so I think that's the hard part, is recognizing like, it doesn't have to be this way most of the time.
Yes. Oh, you're so right. I'm so used to being like, this is normal. Like we
Right.
operating at this level of stress and feeling completely exhausted in every way, shape, and form every day. That's normal. Like it's not.
Right. It's not. But you're saying it like, oh, this is just a normal part. But it's almost like someone's arm is like falling off, and they're going to realize, like, I think I need to go get that checked out, or like, I think I need to rest this arm. I shouldn't be using it as much. It's like it's really flaring here. But like mentally, we have all of those things, and we're like, this is just normal stress. But it's not, right? It compounds and compounds and compounds.
Yes. And then like that thought, I don't know, for me at least, it's like, well, if I just sleep a little bit, like I'll be fine. I'll be able to get back to it and everything will be better. But like,
Yeah.
I know sleep and rest is such an important part of our mental health, our physical health, everything. But for me, if I am at that point of total burnout, even if I take a nap for 20 minutes, it's not like done. It's not, I'm not healed. I'm not like super ready for the day. I'm just even more exhausted, honestly.
I know. And I think that's the hard part, is people think often that if, I think it helps, it's not a bad thing, but when they're experiencing burnout, that it's like, I need to escape to get better. Like I need to take a leave of absence, or I need to do XYZ, or take, sleep for 5 days. And in our heads, that sounds like, okay, that's everything I need. But it's like pulling a car over and just stopping it. Like the gas tank is not going to refill itself. So like, it's great, you're not draining more gas, but like, it's not going to refill. And so it's only half of the equation of kind of getting better. And I think that's also something that's, really noticeable with burnout, is that you can sleep, right? You can do these things like sleep and wake up and feel like, I'm just as emotionally exhausted. Like it did not cure me. You might feel a little less physically exhausted, but emotionally it doesn't change things. So that's also a very good kind of sign to look at.
Yes. Oh, I love it comparing it to a car. It's like the tank can't refill itself. It really
No.
takes, I
Yeah.
mean, work. It takes doing things for yourself that
Yeah.
work for you, and what works for someone else may not work for you, and that's okay. I think in the beginning, when I would get really like starting to recognize these feelings of burnout, I would like go on TikTok and be like, what to do about burnout? And
Yeah.
what worked for other people was not working for me. And I was like, well, something's wrong with me. I'm just supposed to feel this way. And it's
Right.
so difficult if you don't know what to do. So, what are some examples of different things people can do to figure out what works for them?
Mhm. like to look at this idea of draining, right, versus fueling is like the things that what knowing, having the awareness of what drains me, what are the things that after I do it, I feel exhausted or I feel kind of pessimistic or I'm approaching it with that mindset of I should do this, I need to do this, like something external is pushing me to do this. Identifying those things and identifying what fuels me. What do I say? Like, I want to do this, or I'm like choosing to do this, or I look forward to doing this. And afterwards, I feel kind of like I've light in me. I feel a little bit I feel passionate. I feel energetic, or even just like content, right? Calm, and recognizing the difference between those two. And I really recommend people even just use their calendar of their day and go through it and just spot like a plus or negative or color, just starting to figure out, like take an audit of your day, figure out what are the things that typically drain you, what are the things that typically like will give you that boost. And then you start to know kind of, okay, if I feel like I'm heading towards burnout, ideally, I want to decrease the negative and increase the positive. Sometimes that's not always possible. And sometimes there's no positive. And so it's just adding in sometimes it's the first step is adding in more of those fueling things, even if they're 5 minutes at a time and staggering. So, if I have two like draining things, I got to add something fueling after versus my entire day is draining and then I'll add in 5 minutes at the end of the day. That's not really going to help. So it's really kind of getting creative with yourself and seeing what helps you, but being very aware of how things make you feel and how the control that you do have over your time, which might be minuscule, but you don't want to neglect that control in the areas that you do have it.
Yes. So something I started doing recently is very similar to that. Is kind of mapping out my day and like, where can I add in 30 seconds to breathe? Or where can I add in like 10 minutes to just go for a walk or go outside? Where can I find like small pieces of time to add something in that makes me feel good or maybe more calm or less stressed, just a moment to catch my breath again instead of allowing myself to constantly be loaded up because like you said, if you just do it at the end of the day and all day you depleted your energy, I mean, it's
you don't
a
feel
lot to get back up to
it's a
start
lot.
tomorrow.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It is a lot. And I think those little things, even though we feel like they're little in their 30 seconds, it also is like you're connecting with yourself, which is a huge part of burnout is like you become very disconnected. Like your brain is working, but like you're very disconnected from your emotions. And so just those 30 seconds of like letting your mind quiet, like looking at the trees outside, whatever it is, like it allows you to be like, okay, like, I'm feeling a little tired, so maybe I'll go a little slower with my approach going forward or whatever, just but checking in with yourself, which is a huge part of it because we can feel pretty disconnected from ourselves.
Yes. And just, I think people think that there has to be like this massive amount of time put toward taking care of yourself. And unfortunately, like, yeah, we all have 24 hours in a day, but everyone's 24 hours looks different. You might have like a total of 1 extra hour throughout your day today. And if that's split up into all these different pieces of time, that doesn't mean you don't have time to take care of yourself. It's just finding the ways you can within your time limit, within your budget, within all the different restrictions that we have in life. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And it's not going to, realistically, you might not have like 3 hours in the middle of the day to do something for yourself. But if you can find those small pieces of time, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it really does. And I think people tend to think it doesn't because it has to be something big or dramatic and a quick fix. And none of that exists with burnout. It's really it's a mind shift of like, I'm worth like the time and I'm worth caring for. And that's a big shift for people, to start to get it out of that hustle mindset and more so into like, I can be successful. I can do what I need to do and take care of myself, which is hard. It's a hard shift.
Oh, it really is to want to prioritize yourself. I mean, everything in society growing up, at least for me, taught me why I shouldn't prioritize myself, why I should take care of everyone else first, why I need to do X, Y, and Z to be successful. I need to study 24/7. I need to go get a job and work 24/7 as well. Like try to do all these things to get ahead.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, I am depleting to a point where I can't breathe anymore in a sense where I am just falling apart on the floor all the time and thinking
Yeah.
that it's me and something wrong with me instead of this idea that I've created or that society has created where I need to be productive to have value when my value comes from just existing.
Right, exactly. And it's hard because society does kind of tell you that. And so when you go against the grain, it can be very difficult to adjust your own expectations and set like real boundaries. And especially when starting it, it can be it really messes with your mind because you start to like, other people don't respond as well usually. But over time, it's really empowering and you can just be just as successful in anything that you want to do, more so honestly because there's longevity. If you're not burning out, you can help others longer, you can show up more fully versus as a shell of yourself. So I think the long-term benefits are huge for taking care of yourself.
Yes, and you mentioned boundaries. Oh, that was something that took me forever to understand the
Yes.
importance of because I've
Yeah.
thought, oh, you have to help everyone else all the time. And like, yes,
Yeah.
helping people is really great. It is. I love to help
Yeah.
people. But if I'm not helping myself and I'm overextending myself for 10 different people and never saying, I
Yeah.
just don't have the capacity today or right now, it's
Yeah.
too much. But I thought that boundaries were selfish, whether it was
Right.
internal boundaries for myself or external with other people, or even like phone time, thinking I need to be on my phone 24/7 to answer emails as soon as they come in, even if it's 2 a.m. It got to a point where I couldn't set a boundary. I did my internship when I was an undergrad. I would answer my boss's emails at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. She'd be like, you don't have to answer me. But I was so like in my
Oh,
head that I had to have my phone, have the volume on, be ready to answer at all times, and never
oh,
setting any form of boundaries because I thought that was wrong.
right. Like that it felt selfish or that you were doing something wrong by not being available 24/7. And I think there is that mindset because, right, like because email and text is 24/7. And so it's hard, to have to shift away from that and to have really, strong boundaries. I think that for me, it really when I started to see other people setting boundaries that I really respected and them being so comfortable, it kind of started for me to be like a huge mindset shift of like, well, they're doing it. I don't think they're a bad person. And I really respect them. They're very successful. And so maybe this is actually an ingredient to their success. And I found that it is. And I think really having really firm boundaries is one of the most critical ingredients for your own well-being and for external success because you have to be able to have enough within you to give. And if not, you burn out. And we see it all the time, people burning out and just not leaving and exiting careers and, things like that because they give, and then they're done.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And it's so frustrating to see how that mindset of creating boundaries
Mm.
is selfish when it's actually very selfless because you're giving,
Mm.
also letting people know that I don't have the capacity to be there for you in the way you need today. And maybe someone else can and be there for them in the way they need to, as well as just yourself. And loving yourself is one of the most like
Yeah.
selfless things you can do because it's so easy to feel so unloved, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it was
Yeah.
growing up, it was what phone do you have? What shoes do you have? What watch are you wearing? Like all these things of what makes you cool. If you don't have it, you're not cool, you're not valued. Like those were the mindset that I had. And telling myself all these reasons I wasn't loved when no, genuinely no one cared what phone I had. Like no one
No,
cared. But to
no
me, I was
one
like,
cares.
I'm not loved if I don't have the newest phone. And
Right.
just that idea of learning to love ourselves in a sense that makes us feel good is not selfish. It's like the most selfless thing we can do because then we can show up for others, show up for
Mhm.
ourselves, show up for the world in the way that all of us deserve. But what are
Yeah.
some examples of boundaries that we can set?
I think it depends on like what the situations are, but I think looking at your life and saying like, okay, what am I saying no to? What am I saying yes to first to just start and see? And if you're saying yes to pretty much everything, it means you're saying no to a lot of things, probably internally and in your own personal life. Um, And so it's really important, and starting small. So being like, okay, what's one thing I can do to start saying yes to myself and saying no to something external, and starting to shift that mindset of, well, nope, everything for others first and then me. So it's a priority change, but being really specific when you set a boundary. So it could be like, I can't do that today, but let's check in next week. So being very clear, but if you're not saying no to everything, you can genuinely, if you're passionate about something, you can still do it, but it's figuring out ways that it works for you. Because if you do care, it's not that you want to run around saying no to everything, but you do want to say no when it matters, and know what your capacity is, how much you can handle, and be very clear about that, because people appreciate it when you're like, I really want to, I can't right now, but let's circle back and check in a month and see if it's a possibility, and be honest.
Yes, making it clear that you just can't right now, but not saying no forever. I think for
Right,
me, that was something that I struggled with, because I was like, well, if I say no, that's it, and the door
right.
is closed. But learning how to just be honest and be like, not right now, but I would love to. Let's circle back. I mean, just such clear language. It's all
Yeah,
about language. You don't have to just
it's
say no and shut the door. And you don't
right,
have to say yes because it's the only time that this will happen. What's meant to happen, I
right,
think, is going to happen at the right time. So
right.
take care of yourself because you deserve it.
Yeah, and so same thing with like our phones and time. And there's so many ways now that you can kind of like set your phone up to have these different times that it kind of like, you can focus, and like all these different parameters. And I think it's just really thinking about, for you personally, what works best and what helps you in terms of setting those boundaries and making it very clear to people, and being honest. I think as long as you're honest and you're not feeling a sense of shame, it's a lot easier, right? So it's really working on and feeling good about the boundaries that you have, and then kind of reinforcing it and making sure those boundaries stick. Like, not saying yes because knowing that if it's guilt that's talking, or fear, if you're responding from that, be very clear with yourself that that's why you're responding. Don't ignore it. And if you do it, we all make mistakes. It's okay, but just be very clear and understand for yourself. Like, I'm saying yes out of fear. And I'm catching myself with that, and I'll let it go this time, but I can't keep doing this. So I think just being very honest with yourself too.
Yes, and even practicing saying it. I know it can be so scary to like enforce
Yeah.
a boundary. I know for me, I was like terrified, like, what if they respond this way? Or what if they don't like it? And like I
Yeah.
created all these scenarios in my mind and then became terrified that I would like freeze and be like, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Oh, right,
And
right.
right, it's so easy to just be
Yeah.
so afraid, but practicing coming up with the language,
Mhm.
what you can say, getting comfortable saying it makes
Yes.
all the difference, because when you're uncomfortable, of course it's scary. When it's
Yeah.
something new, it's not supposed to be super easy and comfortable. But
Yeah.
practicing the language and getting to a point where you feel confident enough to say it out loud to another human really
Hmm.
can make a difference.
A huge difference. And I think also knowing that if you say yes, and then you're like, actually, you think about it, you're like, I can't actually do that. You can say no. You can change your mind. And so it's very important for people to realize that they're not prisoners, even if they're like, yes, and out of fear or something. And then a few minutes later or the next day, you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't handle this. You can say no. Like, you can go back and redefine the boundary.
Yes, boundaries aren't permanent. You can
No.
change them based on what
Mm-hmm.
you need. A boundary
Mm-hmm.
that I set for a while was I wasn't going to talk to anyone between like 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. My phone's on sleep mode. No, nothing's coming through to my phone. And like for a while, that was what I needed, and that was great. But then I got to a point where I was like, I want to get up earlier and I want to check in with my friends. And none of
Yeah.
them can check in after 9 a.m. because they're working.
Right.
So letting my phone not be on do not disturb and silencing all the calls before 9 a.m. became important. So now
Yeah.
my phone will not be on sleep mode starting at like 7:30. And I call my friends and we check in with each other and set our goals for the day, talk about what we're doing. And that became like a new boundary that's all I'm going to do in the mornings. As soon as I
Yeah.
get up, I'm going to make a cup of coffee and I'm going to talk to my friends and set an intention. And if someone calls me that's going to interrupt that intention setting, unless I know it's important, I'm probably just not going to
Yeah.
answer and call them back after, because
Yeah.
that shift in boundaries for me, feeling, I don't know, I love like that check-in with my friends. It's like, what are you doing today? And feel like I'm being held accountable for it. So that way they
Yeah.
can say, like, you have too much on your plate. One of my friends this morning was like, you're recording 3 episodes back to back. Like, do you know what you're doing to yourself? And
Oh gosh.
I was like, no, yeah, you're right. And I was like, moving forward, like I should be mindful. But I
Yes.
would not like think of that on my own, because I'm like, I love doing this. They're like, but at the end of the day, how are you going to feel?
Right.
So my best friend's actually coming over to make me dinner tonight. She's like, you're going to go back to
Oh,
back to back. You're not going to be in a good mood. And I was like, I will be in a good mood. And she's like, you're going to be exhausted. You're not going to want to cook for yourself. You're going to like
yeah.
eat a cookie and be like, that's dinner. So
Yeah.
noticing that, for me, changing the boundaries so I have people who are helping me
Mhm.
set better boundaries for myself in the morning was important. And it's
Yeah.
okay to shift. I feel like that was a really long way to say, like, it's okay to shift and adjust your boundaries and have other people
Right.
help you enforce them in a way that's right for you, your situation, your
For
mental and
sure.
physical health.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important, especially having a good support system is huge that they're able, because sometimes we are kind of blind to our own, because we get so used to it and normalize it that we don't notice it. And someone else is like, oh my gosh, no, you can't do that's not okay. And so recognizing that and having someone else say it, you're able to take that different perspective and see and be like, oh yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe I should shift this a little.
Yeah. And like sometimes it's kind of difficult to notice like that we
Mhm.
had a change in our mood, or that maybe it became a little more irritable and I might not realize what it's from. I might think that the sound of someone's voice is just annoying. Like, no,
Yeah.
why am I
Yeah.
feeling annoyed about that? Because I went all day nonstop and never took a second to just enjoy the day, enjoy any piece
Yeah.
of it. So then by the end, anyone who talks to me, I'm like, go away. I need to like
Right.
poop.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so right. And I think also what you said, like, because you love like recording, like you're willing to like do more of it. But I think that idea of like even too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. And we don't realize that. We always think that, oh, no, everything that is draining is negative, but that's not true. Like it can be amazing things, but just too much of it and your tank is empty. And so it's important to realize that as well.
Yes, you can burn out on doing things that you love. And
Yes.
for me, that was like mind blowing to understand.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
but I love what I do. So how can I ever feel burnt out? I love what I do. So I want to do 10 times the amount every day. I'm
Right.
probably more inclined to hit that point of burnout.
Totally. Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit more about examples of causes of burnout. So
Okay.
I know we said like kind of that chronic stress and doing too much, not setting boundaries. But I know another thing that kind of impacts me is this perfectionist like personality type A that I have, where I always have to be going, have to be the best, have to constantly do better, and
Yeah.
not recognizing like this idea of having to have straight A's, having to have the best this, the best this is creating this. It's increasing the amount of stress I'm putting on myself. So, what are examples of different causes of burnout?
I think definitely you touched on a huge one, that perfectionistic mindset of like having, if it's too easy, like I'm doing something wrong, right? Like it has to be kind of hard, or I need to like do more, or not trusting yourself enough. So you're researching or doing more work than necessary. Um, and also the idea of like, well, when this is over, like I'll have so much time. Like that one is a big one because there's always going to be when this is over, because that's what life is, right? So it's like one thing after another, or just this one time, like I'll do this, when it's not going to be just this one time. So just catching those little like thoughts that pop up that tend to be related to like perfectionism and that like hustle mindset, and really recognizing like where it's coming from and challenging it, but also just looking at the amount of stress, right, that I manage. Like, are you going through something where there's just like a lot of external stress going on, or internal? And if there is, like being very careful, because that's a huge cause of like how you respond to a lot of stress. And that's important to recognize. What you talked about, like, so you have obviously really good friends. Isolating yourself is a huge cause. because no one's like checking, you become very detached. No one is able to give you that litmus check of like, well, you're like, this is not you, you're completely exhausted, or be able to catch you doing things. I think also like working nonstop, working long hours, not taking breaks, not taking care of yourself. And putting like a lot of your energy into, like, if we thought of it as like, a basket, like putting all your energy in one basket, and like if you have, all these different areas of your life, putting nothing in the other. So like maybe your social life is nothing, or everything is school and you're not taking care of your health or your social life or all these other areas. Like if one thing is just like really heavy and everything else you're not putting any energy into, that's also kind of a recipe for burnout. So really looking at, am I giving, attention to other areas? Because often when something gets really stressful, we need to lean into those other areas to help us out.
Yes, yes. And that was something for me that I started to learn recently, right? Because it's so easy to get caught up in all the different responsibilities we have. And then
Yeah.
for me, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to focus just on this for now. And then I'll switch to this. And then I'll switch to this. And then I'll take a sleep day. And I would schedule my sleep days and be
I
like, oh,
love
what are you
that.
doing
I want a
today? And I'm
sleep
like,
day.
what's a sleep day?
Oh, I love that. I know it's not great psychologically, but it
No,
sounds great.
it does, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is a day where I'm going to sleep. And I didn't realize that that was like not a normal thing to do, to think, oh, I can't sleep. And then like after like a month and a half, I'll make time to actually sleep. And so I was at a conference and someone's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you leaving so early? And I was like, well, I'm taking a red eye home so I can have a sleep day tomorrow. And they're like, seriously? They're like, don't you think it'd be better if you weren't on a red eye and you just went to sleep and then got up? I was like, no, it's a whole sleep day. I haven't slept much in like months. And I didn't like realize that that was not a normal thing, to have to schedule time to
sleep
instead of thinking, oh, 2 hours of sleep a night is normal, to the point where I would go through bottles of concealer like a week to try to cover those like black eyes, because I thought that was normal. I thought that that's what everyone does.
Right, like a badge of honor of like, right? I'm working so hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so like frustrating looking back at how that mindset was so normalized for me. And I didn't realize what burnout was, what it meant to check in with myself, how to recognize that there are different aspects in my life. It doesn't have to be all in on one thing all the time. So now my friends and I, through conversation, have learned that if I stop answering like texts, I'm not texting them every day or answering FaceTimes, like they know we're showing up. And like, so my best friend has a key and she'll just show up. She's like, okay, we're going out. Like, put your computer away, put your notes away. Like, it's important, yes, but you need to do anything else right now. And I mean, that has helped me so much. So leaning in on your support system, like we said a little bit earlier, is so important, because it is so easy to get caught up and not even realize it.
Yeah. And I think it's also, when we talk about boundaries, that's hard, but I think it's also really hard to accept support, right? Especially if you're in that mindset. So I think for you, like, it sounds like amazing that they make it very easy. They'll force themselves in, but it can be really easy also to shut that out, to shut out support. And that's scary, because just as much as we need to kind of set boundaries, we also need to make support accessible for ourselves. So that was a good, I like that. So I guess I'm saying give keys to your home to everyone at this point. You're always available. Yeah, don't do that.
But it's finding ways to do it that works for you. So like for me, giving the key to my best friend who I've known for 20 years, great idea. When I start giving out keys to everyone in my life, if I start doing that,
that's very poor boundaries. Yes, then then it's boundary time.
Yeah, so finding support that works for you and what you're comfortable with. That was like not how it started. In the beginning, and like my friend would call me, like, we're going out, we're doing something, and I'd be like crying. I'd be like, I can't, like I have so much to do. And it got to a point where eventually I started to realize, because she kept calling and annoying me to like do anything other than just sit in front of a computer all day. Then I started to do it a little bit more. And then now it's to the point where she's like, okay, I know when to show up and when to be there. And we check in though every morning, so we know if one of us needs the other one and what to do. but it wasn't like an easy journey to get there. She can tell you that it took, I think there was like a year and a half where I was like not answering anyone's phone calls. I was just like not doing anything to take care of myself because I thought you can have friends later in life, but now's the time to work. Now's the time to earn. It's like, but if you're destroying yourself and the process of it, you're never earning what you want. You're just falling apart.
Right. And that is not a cost like of success. You don't need to do that. It does not equal success. And I think in our minds, we think it like suffering is required, but it is absolutely not required.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I remember someone saying to me once something about like, listen to any successful entrepreneur's like story and they'll tell you how much they struggled and how horrible it was until it got better. And I'm like, yes, but also like caring for ourselves is still important. And for a while I thought, right, like you just have to stress and struggle every single day of your life and be miserable until it all works out, right? This like fake it till you make it mindset. Like you have to just pretend like everything's great and then you get there. It's like you're an overnight success. But it doesn't have to be a point where you hate your life every single day. Like, yeah, it's not going to be easy. Life is never going to be easy. But if you wake up and you hate what you're doing every single day, even though it's what you want, like it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't know why, like that was the mindset that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be that way.
No, but you're definitely not alone. A lot of people have that mindset and it's hard to shift out of, but it's once you start to taste like the other side of like not having to live like that, it's really hard to go back, right? It's hard to go back to that hustle mindset when you realize like, I don't have to exist like that. And I can be happy. I can take care of myself and do the things that I want to be successful, to feel accomplished and what that looks like. And so it actually can be much better and feel much better.
Absolutely. As we're beginning to wrap up, what's one piece of advice you'd like to give someone who maybe is just starting to hit those early warning signs of burnout and doesn't know what to do?
I would say to really don't put the pressure on yourself that you did something wrong. I think it's recognizing that you deserve more compassion. Like, so don't go into a critical mindset of like, I did this to myself. I think as we talk, there's a lot of factors that contribute to it. And start to talk to yourself in a more positive way and in a way that like a friend would, and ask yourself, maybe every morning, check in with yourself of like, what is the one thing I need today? Like start with one tiny thing of approaching yourself and asking yourself, like, what do I need? And actually giving it to yourself, because we're not in the habit of doing that.
Yes, giving yourself what you need, being honest with yourself, checking in with yourself. It's so easy to lie to yourself. That's something that I can tell you I do all the time. Right? I'm like, I'm fine. This is fine. It's so easy to lie to yourself. So being honest is so important.
It's so important, being nice and being like kinder to yourself rather than, is when you're in a burnout mindset, it's really easy to be very critical to yourself and very harsh and be like, I did this to myself, so I deserve to suffer. And rather than, nope, I'm aware of what's going on and I'm going to start taking care of myself. That's a big shift, but it's the necessary mindset shift that needs to happen for anything else to happen.
Yes. Oh, I remember that feeling of like, I deserve to feel this way. I did this to myself. I don't deserve to feel better. To switching to like, I deserve to be happy. I work hard. I love what I do and I should enjoy doing it.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. Such a game changer.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining me today. You've been absolutely amazing.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun talking all about burnout.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.